Figure modeling versus fashion modeling. Today, we're going to dig into the differences between being a figure model and being a fashion model. My name's Sarah Candy, and I'm a professional figure model, so if you like content like this, subscribe to my channel, and I put new content out every month. Who's who? A figure model is a model who poses for artists in classes or workshops or for individual private sessions. These models are posing for a drawing or painting or sculpture that is representing the human form in an anatomically correct manner. A life model's job is to pose either for short-timed or long-time poses, sometimes for many hours at once, where they maintain a specific posture that can be rendered by the artist. A fashion model, on the other hand, is a model who poses for photographers, designers, and brands with accessories or clothing that's meant to be publicized and put out in advertisements and all around the real world. Fashion models can be divided into 3 categories, which is commercial, editorial, and runway models. But the biggest difference between figure models and fashion models is the requirements to become one. Now, if you've been on my channel before, you've definitely heard me preach about how anyone can be a figure model, and that is so totally true. So let's walk through the requirements to be a figure model. Physique. Figure models only need to have a good sense of their body and what they're capable of. There's no requirements in terms of height, weight, or measurements. All you need to do is feel comfortable being without clothes and also be able to hold still for long periods of time. Figure models do need to have a lot of flexibility in terms of the artists they work with and the type of poses they create. You need to think on your feet and be able to adhere to a lot of different art forms. It's just as much the artist's job as it is the model's job to take inspiration from each other. There's no physical fitness minimum for life models, however, you do need to be able to hold yourself in poses for a long time. You can choose if you want them to be simpler or more difficult. I personally like all my poses to be an athletic endeavor to see what the hardest thing I can hold is, but that is not the norm. So all you need is to be able to hold still and feel comfortable doing so. Age requirements are super important for figure models, especially if you're going to be doing nude modeling, because then you have to be 18 years or older to work at any university studio, and also that just makes sense. And kind of the overall attitude of a figure model is to be open-minded about human form and nudity, and also about the artistic process in general, because you'll come across a lot of different artists and art styles while you do it. And it's also worth noting that some artists prefer a specific body type or look to their models, but in reality, artists really need a wide array and diversity of models in order to study anatomy to its fullest and know everything there is to know about it. Now on to fashion modeling requirements, which I'm guessing you have an idea of because of pop culture and all the media around it. Think Bella Hadid, right? The requirements to be a fashion model depend on the agency, but the general standard is they have to be taller than the average individual and also be very lean and toned. A symmetrical face, good hair, and good skin are also very helpful in that realm. Although there's no specific height set for fashion models, they say that women have to be at least 5'8" and men have to be 6 foot. And then interestingly, people start training to be a high-end fashion model between the ages of 14 and 25. Once you're out of that age limit, you're probably not going to have a high point in your career anymore. And then perhaps the most challenging part besides the physique that not everyone has is the confidence and poise to be a fashion model. You have to be comfortable either on a runway or behind a camera or in front of a camera. I always get those two messed up. And honestly, come up with ideas a lot quicker than a figure model does. For example, when I'm modeling, I'm always thinking about the next pose I'm going to be doing, but I'm sitting in that pose for at least 1 minute before I go to the next one. Whereas a fashion model's in front of a camera, they're constantly coming up with poses and they're constantly in motion, and it's the photographer's job to capture them. So I know I touched on some stereotypes about the fashion industry, which is thin models, tall models, but it is important to know that the fashion industry is constantly changing and there has been a greater diversity in models, and with every season, new things are needed. There are a lot of new agencies that are looking for a diversity of models in shapes, sizes, colors, and talents and backgrounds, so you can definitely find those, and there's a lot of brands that really cultivate that identity as well. Biggest takeaways about fashion model versus figure model is that fashion models have a very, very strict physique that they have to follow in order to be successful, and that's not true in figure models. I can say with some confidence that a fashion model could likely become a figure model, but a figure model could not as easily become a fashion model. And now let's talk about why we have each type of model and what the industry is like, why they exist. The figure modeling industry is essentially just fine arts, which is gaining a lot more popularity as we move away from contemporary art and are looking back in our history to study these traditional masters. Fine arts really encompasses a large range of artists, models, and settings, and so you can kind of find your place anywhere within it. You definitely fit somewhere. In terms of pay, life models are typically paid per session, and the wage depends on the location, the artist asking for the session, and also the duration of how long you'll be holding that pose for. It might be several weeks or it might just be one time. There are very few full-time life models because it's not really a career, more of a side gig. So a lot of people do it just occasionally or seasonally. However, like I said, there is an increasing interest in fine art. So there are more opportunities to become a figure model, so now is the time to get into it. In general, the figure modeling industry or fine art can be a little hard to break into, but once you're in it, you're able to collaborate with other artists and contribute to the world of fine art, so it's a really special place to be. On the contrary, we've got the fashion industry, which is really high-paced and competitive and has been for its history. Fashion models are usually signed to an agency or a manager that will help them maintain their presence and also secure jobs. Because the industry is so competitive, you really will only thrive as a model if you have a certain look and all the right measurements. The industry, unfortunately, has been known for toxic standards of beauty, which makes it really hard for many models. Although fashion models also work on a freelance basis, their income varies a lot based on experience, but they can make a small wage or multi-millions every single year. The fashion industry exists in major cities like London, Paris, Tokyo, Milan, and New York. And so if you exist outside of those areas, you're very unlikely to find a successful career. None of this is to say that the fashion industry is a bad place, but it's a lot more difficult to break into, especially if you don't get started young or are situated in the right place at the right time. Fashion modeling industry requires a lot of dedication and hard work and also some base level of attractiveness, or I guess I should say conventional attractiveness. However, it can be a super exciting career for those who can meet the industry standards and thrive with that pressure. In conclusion, fashion and figure modeling are both modeling, but they exist in pretty separate worlds. Life models are typically employed by schools and universities or communities, and fashion models are hired by high-end brands. Figure models appear in fine art and illustration. Fashion models appear in advertisements and magazines, and also big runway fashion shows. One certainly is more mainstream than the other, but it is my hope and wish that figure modeling becomes number one in a lot of people's lives. So if you like content like this, remember to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.